Welcome to Dad's DeFi Space. I'm Kevin, and I'm so grateful you've taken some time out of your day to learn a little bit more about crypto and DeFi. So, if you're one of those out there that is bored with the chop in the crypto market, is waiting for that continuation of the bull or the beginning of the bear, let's hope not, of course, then this may be the video for you, because we will today answer the question of how to earn yield on our crypto assets. And we're going to be talking about how do we do this by yield farming and providing liquidity. But before we begin, I want to say this first. Please remember, none of this is financial advice, and I am not a financial advisor. Please do your own research and never, ever invest more than you can afford to lose. We are going to be looking at something interesting in the crypto and DeFi markets today. Please like and subscribe and ping that notification bell. And remember to check out dadsdefispace.org to learn more about crypto and DeFi, free articles, free course, and a monthly newsletter. Also, find us over on X at CryptoZone1013 and on Telegram, Dad DeFi 1013. And check out our links below, including Weeks, $30,000 of USDT rewards, and Crypto Labs research, 20% off your first month. Tell them Dad's DeFi Space sent you for $50 USDT. Now, let's get to today's video. How to yield farm. So I don't want to get into this just yet, but I want to make sure we're in the right zone of mind to do this. So at this point of the video, until the end of the stream, we're going to have class. And I'm going to teach you the basics of what you need to know and what you need to do to yield farm, provide liquidity, earn passive income on your crypto. Now, why do we use strategies like this? Well, we use strategies like this because why just allow your crypto assets to sit in your wallet while you wait for the price appreciation? Especially if you can earn passive income. Cryptos can be staked, can earn 3%, 4%, 8%, 10%. If Adam, that one's pretty high right now because they're trying to get people in the game. You can liquid stake. You can lend on Aave. Lending, yes, the yields are lower, but you're still earning yield. And one of the strategies I remember learning and that I utilize with the UIG investment group is yield on yield. We earn, I can loan out some of my Ethereum. I can earn yield on that, let me add another step there. I can liquid stake my Ethereum and earn yield on that. And then I can take my liquid stake token and lend that out and earn yield on the staking token for lending. And then I can borrow off that, collateralizing it and borrowing, and then use that money into a liquidity pool and earn yield on that. The cycle can repeat itself. Now, do be careful with some of these strategies. You never, ever want to over leverage yourself, right? But what I want to do now is talk about yield farming, AMM, and providing liquidity on decentralized exchanges to earn crypto passive income. I don't think many people out there understand how much yield you can actually earn on your assets. And we're going to look at why, we're going to look at how, and we're even going to look at some of my own personal strategies towards the end of this video. Now, I always like to start off talking about why do we choose to invest in crypto and DeFi in the first place? It's new, it can be cumbersome and hard to learn. But, well, hold on. At the same time, you can also there can be hacks. There's so many negative things that could happen to you while you invest in the DeFi space. It takes a lot of education, understanding the risk to be able to, what's the word I'm looking for? To be able to earn that yield, but earn that yield in a safe way and not get wrecked. So, why? Well, first off, Bitcoin and crypto are decentralized. Obviously, Bitcoin to the greatest extent. Some of the others are not. Okay. So, what we really truly need to know in this space is when things are decentralized, there's no central authority, a bank, a government, a business that can stop you. It's liberating. It's freedom. This brings potential for higher and higher returns because decentralization is valuable. At the same time, with Bitcoin specifically, they can only produce 21 million. So there's a potential for high returns. And cryptos and Bitcoin can very much be a hedge against inflation, specifically Bitcoin. Okay. Specifically Bitcoin. So, what I would like to talk about is the financial inclusion of Bitcoin and cryptos. This comes from the permissionless nature of it. When you don't have to ask permission to bank to make a decision, this is peer-to-peer exchange without getting permission from the government, without getting permission from a business, without getting permission from a bank. That's the beauty of DeFi, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. You can be the bank. This brings about global access, and this is how financial inclusion is achieved in the crypto space. All right. So next, I'm going to talk about why use DeFi in the first place. So DeFi is private. I don't have to ask permission to take a loan, to borrow, to loan my own assets, or to provide liquidity. Basically, it's allowing us to be big market makers, like the big guys in America and the American financial system. But I can do it with $1, $10, $100, $10,000. I don't have to be a accredited investor. I can get a loan off my Bitcoin in one of these protocols in less than 5 minutes. No applications, no approval process. It's kind of nice. DeFi tends to be censorship resistant, just like Big Daddy Bitcoin. The protocols are there. Use at your own risk. They usually don't stop people. This facilitates direct peer-to-peer trading. This is done through decentralized exchanges. We're going to talk about it in just a minute, and allows you to trade a variety of different cryptocurrencies, high caps, mid caps, low caps. Now, obviously, we're going to talk about some cons. There is smart contract risk and permanent loss, which means you're losing out on your principal. We'll talk about why it's called impermanent a little bit later. And hackers and thieves. A lot of this has to be done on hot wallets. Yes, you can tie a hardware wallet to it, but at the same time, you are always at risk for hacks. That is why I tend to try to only invest what I can afford to lose. And on top of that, I don't put all of my crypto and assets into DeFi. I put some, but not all. Let's move on. Yes, this is probably the most important point. And it was the thing that caused me to get so interested in DeFi, that you can be the bank. You can be the one giving the loan. You can get a loan without permission. You can provide liquidity to some risky assets and try to earn some high yield. Not recommended necessarily, especially if you're a beginner. But also remember, this is just a guy who loves to play in crypto and DeFi. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research. That is why you are watching this video, because those of you who are still here and watching it, you're wanting to fill your head with knowledge, understand the space better, which is going to make you a better investor in the long run. So why do we provide liquidity? We want to earn passive income on our crypto assets that are just sitting there before we sell our bags towards the end of the bull run. Obviously, we don't sell everything all at once. We use a ladder out strategy, just like we dollar cost average into our positions. So you can make passive income on your crypto in different ways. You can cash flow it and then have income coming in, paying your bills, paying down your debt, investing in more cryptos. Maybe you're cashing some of that out and putting it into your retirement, buying a property, a house, whatever. There's a huge potential for high returns. Now, obviously, the greater the risk, the greater the reward. So that's always something to consider. Now, there is a potential for extremely high returns and earning fees with these kind of liquidity LP assets. I love the fact that this has a low economic entry level. You can enter a liquidity pool with less than $1. Now, you wouldn't have much to show for it, but the idea is I don't have to be an accredited investor. I don't have to have millions of dollars to be able to participate. This is amazing. This is inclusive. This is freedom. And remember, the best kind of freedom is financial freedom. This also supports trading and liquidity, which it just makes for more seamless trades, less slippage, the larger amount of liquidity, the easier the trading process on decentralized or centralized exchanges for that matter. And then providing liquidity can be private. There is no accreditor investor designation needed, and that is part of the reason, right? Fix the money, fix the world. If we can fix the money system, meaning give that power back to the people, people are going to have more freedom to make their own decisions, and the world will be a happier place. Now we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the lesson now that we had the introduction. So this information over the next couple slides came from OKX, not one of my favorite crypto exchanges, but I want to give credit where credit is due. It's being covered up by my banners. I will try to link this PowerPoint into the video, and you'll also be able to find this on our webpage, dadsdefispace.org. Be sure to subscribe to get access to all of our free articles. But liquidity mining is when a crypto investor provides any asset, right? Any asset that's cryptocurrency into a DeFi protocol liquidity pool that people are using for swaps or trading. You earn rewards if you're yield farming, and you're earning trading fees if it's just providing liquidity. There's different ways that we go about doing this, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But you can earn APRs and APYs in the upwards of 1,000%. Now, that is at the higher end, obviously. I like to kind of shoot for 10% a month, which is about 120% APR a year. It helps you maintain your assets at a better level. But I love the fact that this can be done at any income level and you can be the bank. Now, I thought this graphic, which came from the OKX page, was an excellent graphic organizer explaining liquidity, how it works. You, the crypto investor, are the liquidity provider, and you provide assets, 2 different crypto assets usually, into a liquidity pool. Those assets are in with everyone else's in a certain range. And when the price is within that range, the swaps are occurring. And then whoever's providing liquidity within that range, they get a cut of those fees based on the amount of LP tokens they receive, which is directly related to the assets or the amount of assets they put into the pool. Now, that is where the trading happens on the decentralized exchange, right? And there's a trader on the other end. So I want you to think about it like this. We provide the liquidity into the pool, right? We get trading fees back based on our LP tokens. Now the trader is putting assets and trading fees into the pool, and they're getting the other asset and no trading fee back. So our asset's getting swapped for their asset. A liquidity pool is like the ultimate contrarian trade, because whatever everybody is trading the most of, you're going to be swapped into the opposite. This is great if you're like dollar cost averaging into something. You can actually use a liquidity pool to dollar cost average into a position. We might make a full video of that in the future. Let me know in the comments. Also, we need to talk about not just what is liquidity providing, but what is yield farming. So yield farming is slightly different. Yield farming, you're still providing liquidity into a pool, right? And that can be either concentrated or it can be 50-50 or what's called a full range position. We'll talk about those in a minute. But yield farming is earning rewards for providing liquidity. So you're not earning the fees, you're earning rewards instead. You can do this by liquidity, staking, or lending within DeFi. So when you're yield farming with liquidity pools, in a sense, you're depositing assets into a protocol to generate yield. The main strategies of yield farming are, or this first one, liquidity provision, right? When you yield farm, sometimes it's vaulted, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's locked up and staked, sometimes it's not. But usually there's going to be some kind of way to force you to keep that liquidity within that smart contract so you're not withdrawing it. That's kind of the benefit for the DEX if they choose yield farming over LPs kind of setup, or like just providing liquidity in an LP. I'll give you a kind of an explanations, right? If we are providing liquidity mining, this is what you do on Uniswap, on Pancake Swap, on Sushi Swap, whatever, depending on the chain that you're on. Now, yield farming would be more like Aerodrome or Velodrome, where you provide the liquidity, then you stake the liquidity, and you can earn Aero rewards or Velo rewards. Right now, the key risks, just like liquidity providing and permanent loss, you can have smart contract vulnerabilities and obviously market volatility, which can lead to impermanent loss. So how do we maximize our profits when we are trying to yield farm? We diversify our positions, we have to monitor the yields, and we have to reinvest our assets strategically. So what are the main differences between an LP and a yield farm? So an LP is when you supply assets to liquidity pools, right? Uniswap. It facilitates trading. You earn a share of those trading fees. Now, yield farming, you're earning additional rewards because you're staking or lending those assets within a DeFi protocol, usually on top of the LP rewards. Well, Aerodrome's a little bit different. You vote, and then the VE arrow becomes your percentage of the trading fees. It's actually a really, really interesting structure. I may, in the future, make a video on that. Excuse me, but we're getting into much more complicated concepts during that discussion. Next, so the difference is you're in one liquidity provision, you're earning the fees. In yield farming, you're earning the rewards, but they're very, very similar. Now, both LPs, whether that you are yield farming them or just liquidity providing, they can face impermanent loss. This can, there's also added smart contract risk or hacks, token dilution, all the other things you'll have to worry about if you're investing in altcoins. Now, the earning structures of LPs, you're earning that from trading fees. Yield farmers, you're actually earning from the staking reward incentives, the interest, or the rewards for providing the liquidity. So, what you need to know if you on which one to choose, liquidity provisions or LPs, they prioritize efficient range selection. So in those, you much more are going to be, you're going to be, excuse me, you're going to be better off using full range positions a lot of times because the concentration of the liquidity does not matter as much, right? So that means in liquidity providing, we have to provide efficient range selection and mitigate our impermanent loss. Yield farmers tend to optimize for the APY or APR and the reward compounding that happens when you yield farm. I know some of this probably sounds complicated. You'll probably have to go back and watch bits and pieces of it over and over again. And then in the near future, I also plan on making shorter videos on how to yield farm properly. Now, before we get into how we can yield farm or provide liquidity, we need to talk about DeFi safety. Now, you've always heard not your keys, not your crypto. Anything you're not yield farming needs to be on a hardware wallet, and you need to learn how to use a hardware wallet. We love to use Tangem. We also have a Ledger, but Tangem is a great and easy wallet to keep your long-term holdings in. Because whenever you're doing DeFi, the wallet has to be connected. When you're connected, you have smart contract risk and security risk. So before you provide liquidity, you must assess the risk of the platform you're using. Has it been audited? What's the security like? Has it ever been hacked before? Things like that. You need to implement strong security practices for any of your wallets. Two-factor authentication, multi-signature wallets if you can. If at least the two-factor authentication plus long and random passwords. Another thing you need to be very cautious of in this space is phishing attacks. I've known so many people who've clicked on a link they thought was something else, only to have their LPs or their coins, their tokens stolen out of their wallet. And we hate scammers on this channel. Now, don't trust, verify. That is a good motto to live by in this space. Don't trust me. Don't trust anything you've seen online. Research it for yourself. So watch out for email, Telegram, and X scams. There are scammers all within my own YouTube comments. I see them in Discord and Telegram and X and Facebook and everywhere else. Understand that if the deal sounds too good to be true, it is. It is. It's a bad deal. You're probably getting scammed. What makes this so much easier in this space is never invest more than you can afford to lose. I can't say that enough. And I'm going to say it a second time. Please keep everything on a hardware wallet like Tangem. If you use our link below, 10% off. You don't have to use my link, but please get a hardware wallet. And on that note, never order one off of Amazon. Never get a hardware wallet used. You order from the actual company. Who knows if someone hacked that wallet or set it up that when you put your crypto on it, bam, it's gone. Now, we're going to talk about some of the components that enable us to yield farm and provide liquidity. The first one is you need to know what a decentralized exchange is. See, there's two kinds of exchanges in crypto. You have decentralized exchanges and centralized exchanges. A decentralized exchange is called a DEX, and an AAM is a automated market maker. That is kind of what we call the liquidity pools in a way. So how does an AMM DEX work? Well, liquidity is provided by whoever who deposits two assets into a pool, let's say Ethereum and USDC, or Bitcoin USDC, or Solana and Render. After those assets are deposited in the pool and there's enough total value locked, people can perform trades. Now, the two assets in the pool, whoever's provided the liquidity, they're going to be swapped back and forth. And then if you're the one who provided the liquidity, you get an LP token, right? That is usually deposited in your wallet. And that's your kind of documentation that you put that liquidity in there and these are your fees. So this is sort of what we use and what we deposit our assets on to earn passive income, to earn those fees. Now, centralized would look a little bit like this, where everything is coming from one point. So this has a single point of failure. And yes, I know many of these are older tokens. Some of them probably don't even exist anymore. Decentralized, though, is different. Oh, excuse me. Decentralized has everything connected. But if one goes down, the rest can still function. This makes a decentralized network much, much, much more secure than any centralized network. Now, before you can get providing liquidity, you have to also learn how to use what's called a bridge. And a bridge allows crypto assets to be transferred between different blockchains. Like you have Solana as a blockchain, Injective as a blockchain, Ethereum as a blockchain, and so on and so forth. Now, a bridge is a protocol that transfers assets between different blockchains. Like you can do Ethereum and get it from Binance Spark Chain to Base Network. And then you can provide liquidity on Base Network. And yes, you have to move funds around sometimes. So this is something you do need to know. How does a bridge work? Well, assets are locked. You lock them on the source chain. That's where you came from. And you get an equivalent amount of tokens minute on the target chain. There's usually a fee for this. That's how the protocol creators make theirs. And then when you bridge back, you get your tokens back. And that's how a bridge works. Now, when you're transferring back, the minute tokens are burned and the original assets are released. So you don't have, inflated supplies. But some people are weary because there are bridge hacks. And some of the largest crypto hacks in the past have been through bridges. I remember there being a massive one on Polygon last market cycle, which used to be called Matic back then. Now, bridges are needed because we need interoperability between chains. Because we got to be able to access those DeFi protocols and yield farms between different blockchains. That's why we need bridges. It allows us to efficiently move capital and optimize our liquidity into the right chain with the highest APY. And it allows us to reduce fees and have faster transactions, right? Lower fees, faster speeds, because we can go to the chain that provides the most liquidity. Now, there are considerations to take. Security. You must use trusted bridges. If you don't, I would always test first. You never know. And transaction costs, depending on what what change you're going to. Sometimes transaction fees can be high, especially if you're moving to or from Ethereum. We all know this if you've been in this space any amount of time. But let's move on to the next part of the lesson, is understanding the difference. So when you're providing liquidity, there's always two assets. Typically the more volatile is the primary asset, and then the less volatile is your base asset. So in this example, ETH would be the base asset, USDC would be the volatile asset, or excuse me, the quote asset, right? That's all we really need to understand, because you'll read articles or research on different pools, and they're going to refer to base asset, quote asset. Okay. So you can always refer back to this if you need to. So if we're providing liquidity especially concentrated liquidity, and we'll talk about that in a minute, you need to understand correlation. Now, correlation of assets has to do with price movements, right? Asset correlation is the degree into which two assets move in relationship to each other. You have a positive correlation if they move in the same direction. I think both going up together, right? Positive correlation. If they go down, it's a negative, but it's still positive. It's a negative price, but positive correlation because they're moving together. And if you are negatively correlated, they begin to move in the opposite direction, kind of like this. Okay. So when this happens and we're converted into the other asset, the value of our LP changes. This is what leads to impermanent loss. So it's very important, right, to understand correlation. And DeFi Llama has an excellent tool that you can use to determine correlation of assets. All right. It's great with risk management because if the assets are highly correlated, you decrease the risk of impermanent loss. And if they are not correlated, you increase the risk of impermanent loss. Just something to be aware of. Now, we're going to be taking a look at full range pools versus concentrated. Those are basically our two options. Now, a full range position, what you're doing is the liquidity is being provided against the entire range. It's being split between the two, 50-50, right? So if it was like USDC or Ethereum USDC, it's going to be 50% Ethereum, 50% USDC, okay? Now, these are less volatile. They earn less fees, though. We're still talking about full range LPs, and they're much less efficient with capital. You will not have much impermanent loss or no impermanent loss in a pool like this because 50% is USDC, the other 50 will be your volatile asset, and you're going to withdraw the same amount. And this is because the asset pool percentages are 50-50. No active management is needed. It does it for you, but your yields are going to be much, much lower. Occasionally, I run full range LPs, but I'll definitely run more of them as my portfolio gets larger and larger and larger over time. Now, concentrated liquidity, you actually are picking a price range to only put your liquidity in, and you will only earn fees within that range. So when you're providing concentrated liquidity within a perfect range, you can earn much higher fees. Maybe the full range pool is 50% APY, but I can concentrate it in a 4% range and earn 600-700%. But you can also lose and get wrecked through impermanent loss if you're not careful. The more you rebalance pools, the more impermanent loss you will suffer. And that's what I mean by active management. So with concentrated liquidity pools, yes, you can earn higher fees. We have much more efficient capital use. But these pools need active management. They can go out of range. You have to pick your range. That involves a little bit of technical analysis and chart reading. You will definitely have higher chance of impermanent loss. And the asset percentages are actually based on the price within the range. Now, there are key factors to consider when providing liquidity in yield farming. And it goes down to 3 points. One, your asset pairing and conviction in those assets. Two, you need to look at the total value locked of the liquidity pool and the average volume over time. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then APR and yields, right? So why asset pairing? Well, number one, the asset, is it paired with a stable coin or is it paired with another volatile asset? Because that is going to change how you manage the liquidity position. You're going to have to decide, do you prefer stability and ease of use or higher potential rewards from volatility, but you may suffer more impermanent loss. That is losing your principal. So one of the best ways I believe to help mitigate impermanent loss is you need to invest in assets you believe in, both sides. For example, I believe in Bitcoin. I believe in Ethereum. So if I'm providing concentrated liquidity and I move out of range on this side and I'm fully converted into Bitcoin, I'm okay with holding Bitcoin. And if I move to the other side of my range and I go out of range, I'm okay being completely converted into Ethereum. But it's when people aren't, like they're trying to get high yields, playing with like risky low cap tokens and meme coins, earn these super, super high yields. You can like make your money back in an hour, some craziness like that. But you can also lose your principal very quickly if you're rebalancing a lot in those kind of positions, because they won't stay in range very long if the asset is that volatile. So we also have APR and yield. The APR and yield, or excuse me, we also have total value locked and volume. Let's talk about this for a minute. So, however much total value locked is in your pool, you want to make sure that there's higher volume and that the volume is hopefully equal to the total value locked or even greater than the total value locked, because you know that is going to have a higher APR percentage. You can look at that also to determine, is the APR yield even realistic? I see APR yields all the time that are not realistic. I don't even know how they're doing their calculations. That's why sometimes if you're doing concentrated liquidity, it can be very important to keep up with your positions, your fees, and the price movements. So let's talk about some other factors that you need to consider when you're providing liquidity and yield farming. Volatility, security and smart contract audit risk, the correlation between those assets, price trends, and technical analysis. You can use this slide as a reference point because it just goes into greater detail to what we've already discussed. Now, I want to take a moment to talk about the differences between APR and APY. APR is the annual percentage rate. It does not include compounding. It's just the raw interest rate you're earning in that moment. APR is used on VFAT, but APY, you would see that more on, for example, DeFi Finance. Um, so APR is usually used in lending, borrowing, staking, right? When the rewards don't auto compound. We also see this within LPs. APY, or the annual percentage yield, it includes the compounding effects, and it tends to take into account the interest being reinvested daily, weekly, or monthly. This is used in staking, yield farming, and DeFi protocols with usually auto compounding mechanisms. That's why they're using APY. Right. In some excellent information here if you're present. So we're going to look at the difference between the two kinds of liquidity kind of options. You can have concentrated LPs, which you're going to have to set a range, and then you have full range LPs. If you're not providing in a full range position, you're providing more than likely in a concentrated LP. To do this, you have to learn how to set a range for your assets, and you're going to need to know some basic TA. Specifically, you need to know price trends and how to draw support and resistance lines. You want to understand those key price levels, because those key price levels are going to kind of give you an idea of where you need to set your range. Now, once you set your range, you can get much more technical. You can look at moving averages, volume analysis, because it'll show you where people are doing the most amount of trades. And you can look at chart patterns and indicators and all that other kind of technical analysis. Now, some of the practical tips for range selection in a concentrated LP: start with those trends and the levels, support and resistance lines, identify the trend and major support and resistance. Then you refine that with indicators, right? You look at your moving averages, look at your volume, etc. Then you need to make sure to monitor, right? Because crypto is volatile and you want to manage your risk. You balance wider, safer ranges and versus kind of narrower strategy ranges where you're trying to earn much, much higher APRs. And that's why I can't tell you what to do, because I don't know your risk profile. I don't know your situation, and I don't know how many assets you're actually wanting to provide or even can provide. It's also very good to backtest strategies. There are protocols out there that allow you to do this. I think Revert definitely You can do that a little bit with Crystal. You definitely can do that on Metrics Finance, but those are just some ideas. So with concentrated liquidity pools, you can suffer impermanent loss. Impermanent loss happens as trades happen within a liquidity pool. Your assets are being changed between the two pairs. Understand that it's temporary until you withdraw that LP, then it is not anymore. You really should document your positions and the values to track impermanent loss. It can be difficult at times. That's why many beginners tend to pick full range positions, which is definitely something I would consider. And you always want to compare your positions to what's called HODL. And that would be the HODL would be the value of your assets when you enter the pool compared to the new value with what's been exchanged. Now, you can use mitigation strategies for impermanent loss, right? Only provide liquidity and what you believe in, high conviction assets. If you're not, you're just gambling. Let's be real. If you don't understand, you're gambling. If you don't have conviction, you're gambling. You can always try to get those higher fees and those higher rewards. So pay attention to the APR. That can always help mitigate impermanent loss. I've had positions lose 80%, but I earned 300% of fees. So, hey, I'm happy with it. Now, this is when it's very, very important to select correlated assets. You can always use the correlation coefficient on DeFi Llama. It's an excellent tool. We'll be making a video about that in the near future. And then I wanted to end with my kind of base LP strategy. First off, and first and foremost, educate yourself. Whether you do that with me, the UIG, Underdog Investment Group, or another community out there. Educate your mind, learn the protocols, study the assets. Always select ones that you believe in, and don't be a degen out there. The degens don't believe, and that's the ones who sell for losses. Always allocate to your risk tolerance. I will tell you right now that in the crypto space, people tend to become more risky than they actually are. So you should self-evaluate, understand your risk tolerance. I always try to select pools with at least $200,000 of liquidity, but I am in a few that may be less than this, around 100,000 to 50,000. But I tend to try to stay above 200. I know many people out there that won't invest in LPs less than $1 million, but that also depends on how much capital you're playing with. That number would probably go up if I was playing with more. I mean, I'm never moving more than probably $1,000 at a time. 200,000 is okay. But if I was moving $50,000 at a time, no, I would be looking at pools that were at least $1 million minimum. Not financial advice. Now, my very first pool would either be a full range position, maybe wrap Bitcoin Ethereum, or wrap Bitcoin USDC, or wrapped Ethereum USDC, something like that. It could possibly be concentrated, but it would have a very wide range. And I've shown you some of those before. And then with the rest of my capital in DeFi, I may look into some more correlated pools, higher yields, and then the profits I get off of my rewards are going to be reinvested either into crypto assets, the same ones I get the fees in, or I may swap them into others, or stable coins that are going to be set aside until I need them during a market dip. I tend to provide loans with my stable coins. If they're sitting on the side, might as well earn a little yield on yield. Or sometimes I even put them into other LPs until those funds are needed. Sometimes I might put it in a stable coin pool, a USDC, USDT pool, something like that. I know this was a lot of information today, and I appreciate it if you've watched this full video. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend it with me. And I hope you've left a little bit smarter about crypto and DeFi and that you can use some of this knowledge to up your investing game. Please check out our links below to Dad's DeFi Space and find me on X at CryptoZone1013 and Dad DeFi 1013. Remember, always do your own research and never invest more than you can afford to lose. And I'll see you in the next video, ladies and gentlemen. Peace.